was like picked it out of a catalogue.
Catalogues for actors' names.
Have you ever seen Toast of London?
Yes.
The actors' names in that are always an absolute treat, and I think whenever I get compliments on being called Rufus, I think, yeah, but that would have been better off in the Stephen Toasterverse.
Right, we need to run through a couple of little housekeeping things.
Yeah.
We need to test how worthy you are of the diamond logo.
Okay.
All right. So, I'm just going to pluck a couple of questions out of the air.
Pluck away.
Yep.
I've got to be plucked.
Okay. So, who played the Ninth Doctor?
Well, a more relevant question, I believe,
Yes.
is what is the name of the Ninth Doctor's cousin?
Oh!
Who is a very lovely man called Peter Eccleston.
Of course it's Rufus.
I would struggle to say I know now, but at the time, there's somebody I actually hung out rather a lot with. He was Anthony Cotton's boyfriend.
All right.
He worked in Props on Coronation Street. That was how they met. I knew Anthony Cotton a bit, and as a result, I ended up hanging out with Pete Eccleston.
Easy mistake to make them
Quite a lot. So when I think Eccleston, the first forename that leaps to mind is Peter.
Okay. That's a good explanation. We'll let you off on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
How many knocks were there?
Across the series? Was it three? Was it three?
No, try again.
I'm sure it was three. I do distinctly remember there being 3 knocks. No, I mean, that is the thing, isn't it? Is
Live telly.
Live telly.
Doesn't it?
And also, weirdly, I don't tend to get, having done showing off in one guise or another for a living, and indeed amateurly for my entire life, I don't tend to get terribly nervous about those things, but there was something about being a Doctor Who fan on that show.
If you're going to cock up, that's when it's going to happen.
It was like the pressure of, like, you kind of want to show the fans that, no, I do actually care about this. But then when you get the trivia wrong, it's like, uh-oh. You can hear the, you know,
if it was going to happen,
the sirens start up. Yeah.
It's just
for anybody completely amiss at what we're talking about, because otherwise it feels like we're talking in code, they did a reveal that Peter Capaldi was going to be the next... Chris Capaldi was going to be the next Doctor on live television hosted by Zoe Ball, and I was one of the guests. And I proceeded to make it sound like I had no idea what Doctor Who was, that it was in a television programme. Referred to Christopher Eccleston as Peter Eccleston, and the famous...
You were locked 3 times.
You were locked 3 times, yeah. It was only a plot point for the entire series.
Yeah,
nothing
to
to
worry
remember,
about.
right? Yeah. But yes, so embarrassing in terms of my Gallifreyan credentials.
Why comedy?
Because if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yes. That is a really good way of looking at it.
It's the only way of looking at it. Alan Moore had the comedian die at the beginning of Watchmen. Yes. And then the exposition of why the comedian is called the comedian, you know, it's like he's the darkest character. And I think, yeah, it's that, isn't it? And actually, it makes it, in these censorious times, or at least the presentation of these times as censorious, this idea that, oh, you know, you can't say anything anymore and all of this, is errant nonsense. What really is happening is people are being asked if what you say contains cruelty and we take exception to your cruelty. Reflect on that cruelty. If you then insist on standing by it, that's fine, but then we're able to know that you're cruel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Its consequences is really all it boils down to.
That's exactly it. Free speech is wonderful, but you've got to be responsible for what happens.
That's it, right? Now, the thing with comedy that I find very troubling is that, and don't get me wrong, I realise we live in an age where any reference to Harry Potter or J.K. Rowling comes quite heavily loaded in all sorts of ways.
She's my favourite.
But the thing that I think really is summed up in that book as a brilliant idea is that Dumbledore tells Harry, Voldemort is called Voldemort, right?
Yeah.
Voldemort.
Yeah, not he who should not be named.
Not this mysterious thing, because for as long as it's this mysterious thing, you give it power.
Exactly.
You drag the monster out into the light. That's the thing. So the way that comedy, I think, works for a lot of people is that we deal with the scary thing, we face the trauma, we stare down the monster by making jokes about it. Because if we make jokes about it, we take some of the power out of it.
Well, Moffat said something like this when it came to Let's Kill Hitler. It's a case of laugh at him, because the one thing fascists can't stand is being laughed at.
Supposedly the only person who ever truly hurt Hitler was Chaplin.
Yes, but not a way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can find greater words to have emerged from a human mouth than the speech in The Great Dictator, good luck to point me to them. I would love to know what they are, but they don't exist as far as I know. So, the point is that we now live in an age where there is a conflation between making jokes about something and not taking something seriously. And it completely misunderstands that it might be how serious it is that requires jokes. How dare you make jokes about that awful abuse? Yes, because otherwise what? I have to sit here and consider how awful that abuse is.
It's a defence mechanism for some people.
If you're a comedian and you go to a counsellor, they'll always say to you, so, you know, do you realise that you laugh or make jokes when you say, you know, let my Nando, which was nice, and you think, oh Christ, I didn't realise I did that, oh I must stop. And then you realise that if you force yourself to stop doing that when you're a person that deals with the world through laughing at it or trying to find comedy in it, that when you force yourself to stop doing that, well now you're really fucking miserable.
You didn't hear that.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. I looked around the room, I assumed there was nobody here for strong language was necessarily the all and end all.
Read the crowd.
But yeah, that's why comedy, because the world's too horrible for there to not.
It's a gift, mate. It's a gift.
Or an easy gift.
If it's not a gift for you, it's a gift for the people who listen.
Okay, I'm not denying that, and I'm not necessarily arguing against it. But look, I think the wider question is, we're all dealing with how awful it all is. Does the random collection of atoms that this is, way of processing how awful that is, have any greater validity than anybody else's? No. And so what is my reason for doing it? Because it would be lovely to say, with my jokes and my art and my loveliness, that I can make other people's lives wonderful.
Yeah.
But at the point where I don't feel rewarded, and by the way, I couldn't give a shit about money, it's not rewarding in that way. Yes, because we live in a capitalist society, and the one thing you must never say is that.
Yeah.
It's lovely to think how noble it is to perform, and the joy you can give people. And certainly my life has been endlessly enriched by other people's arts and performances and jokes and craft. But knowing deep down that the thing that puts petrol in that engine is my own desperation of making the world around me make sense, makes it very hard to think that I'm doing it completely selflessly.
Do you, like a lot of comedians, I mean, it's almost a cliche, are you rather an insecure person and your comedy is a way of covering?
I would think of it more the other way around.
Okay.
That everyone should be insecure,
Okay.
right? I get very boring about this. How long have we got? Okay.
I haven't started on the circus yet, so...
Yeah, oh well. All right. That's
We've had a chat.
That's it. Oh dear.
I'll tell you.
Okay. You're sat here listening to me, and whether we feel this time we're talking about ephemeral or meaningful things, the time will elapse at the same rate.
We're going to talk about Doctor Who at some stage.
Well, this will be fine. I'm not the only person saying what I'm about to say, and what I'm about to say is not weird cuckoo conspiracy nut stuff, I promise you that. Everything I'm about to say I can point you at some science that will underpin.
Do I need to leave the stage?
No.
Disassociate.
No, because please also call me on anything that you feel is bullshit. I'm very happy to be have this put to scrutiny.
Okay, no problem.
Do you guys know this thing about the human year? You take the whole of human history and map it onto a year. So, theoretically, the first human being that existed, mitochondrial Eve, we're going to take that as midnight on January the 1st, the first possible moment of the new year. And Siobhan and I sat here now having this conversation. I say conversation, clearly a lecture in which Siobhan is now, and I'm watching participant. That is midnight on December 31st. So all of human experience, right, the entirety of every human being that's ever existed mapped onto a human year. This is a question, right? It's a game we're all playing now. If you know the answer to this, keep stum. But if you don't know the answer and would like to guess, shout out. At what point in that year did human beings stop being cavemen?
Yesterday.
Yesterday? Okay, so we're going for December 30th. Got a yesterday down there.
Anyone else?
It is a game. There's no, you don't fail or feel foolish. But you can see the point, right? The point is, how far through that did we stop being cavemen? And you might think yesterday, oh, you know, might be a bit of a wacky answer. It's actually 6:30 p.m. on December the 31st. Everything that human beings are, everything that we evolved and learned to be, was set for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. Tribal living. Now, we are primates. If you take our brain and give it to a primatologist, that primatologist will tell you just from brain size alone the size of the tribe that primate should live in.
Amazing.
And for our primate brain, it's about 150. Would you like to know some fascinating things? It turns out when you analyse how many people you actually genuinely interact with on Facebook, about 150. It turns out when you find out how many people send actual messages in Christmas cards, as opposed to just, you know, Merry Christmas, about 150. When you look at people's social network. No, well, yeah, sorry, forgive me. Amongst people who use Christmas cards as a way of expressing that. But now, in the modern era, it's who are the people you care about. It leads to a theory called the monkeyverse. Please feel free to Google all these
no
things.
more monkery from you.
Why does everyone insist on calling the monk?
Trust me, we're going to come
We must. But the monkeyverse, it basically means there's only about 150 people that you can consider to be human. You've got a postman, that postman brings you letters. So you might see your postman occasionally. That postman is not a person. That postman is a tool in the world. That postman is the thing that brings letters. Now one day you trip over your front step and the postman runs over to you and helps you up and dusts you down and says, oh, I had my knee like that. You want to go and see so-and-so? I'll tell you what, I'll give you my number. And now suddenly you're hanging out with the postman and the postman now is Dave. And now Dave is a person. The interesting thing is that at the point you and Dave become friends, Nigel, who you went to holiday in Magaluf 6 years ago, just stopped being a person and starts being the thing that went on holiday with you. When you hear about terrible disasters on the other side of the world, your heart bleeds for the hundreds of thousands of people whose lives were lost or affected. But they're not people. And that's not a failing in you. That's not a failure of your compassion or your heart. That's a limit to your biology. We can understand the pain theoretically, but we can't empathise on a human-to-human basis. It's that classic thing, right? Like, we all know cancer's killing everyone. Why are we all sat here and not raising as much money as we can for cancer? And yet, the moment our partner or a parent or whatever, it becomes forefront in our mind. Because it went from being a thing out there that's happening to the things that are people, and started being a thing that happens to a person.
Out of sight, out of mind.
And out of experience, out of sphere, out of the monkey sphere. Yeah. This is the thing, right? The 150 people.
Obsessed with monks.
It comes up a lot. So, essentially, we have evolved to live in a way that provides us feelings of security and belonging. The thing about young men and the problems that we have with young men and their alienation and their loneliness and, you know, what's happening to the suicide rate and what's happening to the drug abuse rates and what's happening to chemical dependency, you know. That's because what's meant to happen is you're meant to all be together and stay together, and there doesn't come a moment in your teenage years where you're pushed out. Yes, you're going to grow and yes, your body will change, but you're still part of something. So all of these things that we tell each other are perfectly natural to feel. Well, it's natural to have these growing pains. It's natural to feel this alienation. It's natural to feel lonely. It's natural for old people in our society to be pushed further and further and be more and more alone. You know, it's natural that we would do. So why does everyone feel like something's fucked? Why do we all feel that the thing that's meant to provide the connection isn't there? Why can we do studies that show that if we lack human touch, literally human touch, it will kill us? It's a really sad thing I'm about to tell you, but it's true. In Romania, under Ceausescu, the orphanages were full, and there was a lot of infant mortality. And some Americans went to study what shifted things in rates of infant mortality. And they found that the only single thing that they could pinpoint why some babies survived and others died was it was the babies in the corridors that survived. And it was because when they cried, if someone was passing, they'd go, there. But they didn't have time to, so they would feed them and whatever. But it was literally, as creatures, if we're not held and touched, and that feeling of belonging, we die. Like, bits of us die. And a sadness exists in us that we can't fix. And then we live in a society that tells us we should be able to fix it by being more mindful, or being more, you know, do more meditation, drink more water. And everyone's ignoring the fact that we just live in a way that cannot provide the happiness that we have evolved, or cannot provide us living in a way that we have evolved to mine happiness from, or receive happiness from. So knowing all of that, the mission then becomes, well, if the world isn't going to provide that for me, how can I make that for myself?
Okay.
That's the mission now. But the question you asked was, am I insecure?
Yeah.
And my answer is, everyone should be insecure because we don't live in the way that we should live. The response to that insecurity should be, how can I minimise it for myself and improve the chances of minimising it for others?
Can I just say, I've done a lot of interviews. That is the most fascinating answer I've ever had of them.
Well,
I'm absolutely serious. That's magnificent. Thank you.
It's really weird being applauded and thinking things. Literally, I can say this in a pub and people look at me like I'm an absolute lunatic. But because I've got a microphone in front of me, people think, well, it must be wise.
Right, let's move on. I have to.
Yes, no. She's normally here to talk about so much.
Okay, well, first of all, guys, do you remember what I asked you to do before this?
No. I'll go first.
Could you please, and it's going to be very difficult, could you imagine this as an American audience?
Yep.
Okay. Would you kindly explain celebrity juice to them?
Yes.
Good luck.
Okay.
Right.
In England, we have a thing called a panel show, in which the host asks questions, and the idea isn't really about who wins or loses, it's about the fun you have on the way. And there was a version of this that was put forward in which none of those rules were followed, and instead we just got two of the biggest female stars in the country, and week on week said that they had big tits and big nostrils, while the viewing figures went up the more we did that. There was a knockabout fun to, like, the anarchy and the chaos of it that was in it at the beginning was very fun. But I think you can actually see it. I mean, I don't go back and rewatch these things, and I don't urge you to particularly, but if you ever find yourself watching the episode of Celebrity Juice, where Ant and Dec were on, and we put them in a glass tank with this completely naked woman, right? And the whole thing was because they'd done I'm a Celebrity, and it was all, like, we were sort of turning the tables on them a bit, but because it was Celebrity Juice, it was also a bit seaside postcard, and kind of thing. And if you watch that, it cuts from, and they're wearing blindfolds, and they're locked in this box, and everyone's killing themselves laughing, and it cuts to a shot of Fern's team, and Fern's in the middle harmony, and I forget who the guest is, and you see me, like, laughing, and then go, if there are any lip readers in the room, I think it's literally that moment in which I said to Fern, well, that's it then, isn't it? Because with Alan Decker, the biggest stars in British television. I mean, I don't care about, you know, BAFTAs and drama and all of that. No. What telly is, I mean, dramas and whatever, lovely, but you buy those on Blu-ray or stream them, you can show them in a cinema. That's not telly. Telly is Abigail, is all else. So the biggest stars in telly, and I'm a Celebrity is one of the biggest shows on telly, and we've got the stars of that. And when we were starting out, you know, you couldn't book Sunita, you know, you couldn't book, you know.
What was it? ITV2.
ITV2, and it was Keith Lemon and all this. So it was the fact that we built to the point where the biggest names in television were now on there and being embarrassed, and that was the point I said to Fern, well, we've got nowhere to go from here now. It always felt like a climb up, but we were the scrappy underdogs, but now we're the place where this happens. And so yeah, it was the ascent was fun, but then once it became a success, what it being a success meant to the other people involved was just not why I've ever done anything. Stop being fun.
Stops being fun, get out.
Right, we'll all be dead. There's only one guarantee. So what are you going to do between now and
I
then?
plan to live forever, mate. Or die trying.
Can I recommend an immortality? And says to Andy Pryor, I've written this character called Rufus, I would very much like you to get Rufus Hound to play it. Andy Pryor is in rather in a tricky position, because my agent phones him once a month, and he tells my agent to fuck off. And now he has to phone my agent and say, not only is it not Doctor Who, but it's like, you know, the spiritual sequel to one of the most important TV dramas ever made, you know. And there might be a part in it for him. The one stipulation I know that Andy Pryor put into Russell was, I will put Rufus on tape for you, but only on the condition that I can also put proper actors on tape for you as well.
He's doing his job.
I'm on Andy's side in this story. I'm a fan of Doctor Who. I don't want you just bringing any old shit onto my show. You know, like, make sure they're good. So, I go in for this thing on Cucumber, and it went pretty well. Yeah. And basically, one of the most rewarding things that could ever possibly happen happened, which was, it went pretty well. About 2 days later, I get a phone call from my agent, and he says, just quickly sit yourself down. I said, why? He said, well, because you absolutely got the part in Cucumber. I was like, all right, yeah. He said, yeah, that's not actually why I'm ringing you. Like, this is already exciting enough.
It's one of those phone calls, isn't
he said, I'm ringing you because I've also got a message here from Andy Pryor that says, I'm genuinely sorry that I didn't take you more seriously, and I completely accept that you actually are an actor, and rest assured we're getting the scripts in now for next series. I will look for something that you will be right for. And me imagine that I would ever audition for something, Doctor Who. Instead, literally because of Russell T Davies putting me in front of Andy Pryor, about 2 months later, I was on set filming something in a pub car park. In fact, no, fuck it. I was filming a taster scene for a film that could have got made, and it was me and Billy Piper. And I've been filming Billy Piper, and I was out in a car park in Holloway, literally jumping up and down, punching the air, and I walked back in, and of all people, Billy Piper went, what was that? Yeah. So yeah, it was a straight offer. Would you like to come and play a highwayman in Doctor Who?
Was it what you dreamed it to be?
Yeah, and more besides. Yeah.
Can't ask for better.
No, it was absolutely wonderful. And I did, you know, it was lovely working with Capaldi, of course, because he cropped up in Who, and then they found a way to justify why he could also be the Doctor later on.
Oh, that was very cleverly done, I thought.
So did I. The idea that there were these echoes, and like it was sort of internal Doctor trying to give you clues to, you know. Yeah, quite. And I thought, well, if that's been established, then maybe.
Well, that explains his speech at the end when he's telling the next one, this is what you need to be like.
Well, that idea that we're actually always talking to our future and past selves is very powerful, isn't it?
Oh, very much. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, I am haunted by the ghosts.
That's it. But, you know, if we regenerate, how much of what we were has been left behind? You know, why is he...
And then, are you the same person? We're getting deep.
Yeah. But I mean, that is what Doctor Who's about, right?
Yeah.
Like, anytime anyone says, oh, let's not make it political, you think,
Oh,
hello! Yeah.
the monk.
Yes.
Go on, how did you get that one?
How did I get that one?
No, I'm asking.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So sure.
Come on, Siobhan, do your research.
According to Wikipedia, last Wednesday you turned into Pink Lamont.
Because
is so good.
yeah. Nice to know they're still out there.
Yeah.
I would love to say, you know, that there was any great thing more to it than they phoned up and said, was I interested in doing it? And obviously it was a bite your hand off, yes, of course. Like one of those things where, as an agent, they phone up and they tell you the job, and you go, yes, I'll do it. And they go, whoa, 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 I haven't told you the money yet. And you go, well, A, I don't care, but B, this is a largely kind of fan service sci-fi audio drama. And I'm not imagining the next words out of your mouth are, so this is how many million they've, you know. I think we're all right just knowing that it's, you know, it's for the love of doing it.
How did he come up with his character? Because there's a certain similarity to Peter Butterworth, but it's not. It's a bit like the Doctor in that respect. There's that running thread through, but it's different.
Yeah. I felt like the Master's the Master,
Yeah.
the Doctor's the Doctor, you know,
And
all these Gallifreyans, but they, you know, the Master exists in opposition to the Doctor. Thesis, antithesis, black, white, yin, yang. That's the sort of idea. And that line's been a bit blurred as it's gone on, but that was the idea, right? Hero, villain.
Moriarty. Yeah.
Batman, Joker.
Yeah.
So if you've got Batman, Joker, you've still got Penguin and Riddler, but they can't be Joker. The point is, Batman is trying to impose order on chaos. So therefore, the Joker is chaos. The Doctor is trying to impose sort of kindness on unkindness, in some respects. So therefore, the Master has to be cruelty. So therefore, the monk can't be cruel. So what is the opposition to the Doctor?
Mischievous.
Well, I think it's selfishness.
Okay, yeah. Because, I mean, when Graham was back, there was an awful lot of collecting of artworks and this sort of thing he wanted. Yeah. So you're taking that thread through.
Yeah. I've got, in my head at the very least, a version of Day of the Doctor that is Day of the Monk.
Well, I was going to come to this. Can you say two words for me, please? Noodling nun.
Noodling nun.
You owe me £5.
Well, you can't call her the meddling nun.
No.
Noodling nun.
But I quite like the fact that, it was a conversation that we had earlier, that the Doctor says, call me the Doctor. The Master says, call me the Master. The monk never says, call me the monk. He actually is always telling you that, stop calling me this!
His real name is Mortimus.
Yeah.
Oh, you know that?
Well, no, but is his real name Mortimer's? Is the Doctor's real name John Smith?
Ooh.
But it's all of those things, and I don't think those answers are important so much as when you hear the Doctor call himself John Smith, it tells you, oh. So I think the same thing with the monk being Mortimer's. I don't put any greater. He's a con man, ultimately.
Yeah.
So you don't go around saying, here's my calling card, make sure it's entirely consistent, you all know where I was and what I was doing.
John Smith would be a very good name for the monk, quite frankly.
And actually it'd be a lovely monk touch to start calling himself John Smith to try and smear the name of the Doctor for
Big
future
finish.
generations.
That's actually not a bad idea you just come up with.
Yeah? Well, it all plays into more deeply how I think the monk fits into it all. Because I actually think that the monk has got a philosophical argument that trumps the Doctor's.
Please try it out on us.
Well,
Never be cruel, never be cowardly, just be kind. Go on.
okay. Cruelty and cowardice are largely judged in context. If I kill you, that's cruel. But if I kill you because you were going to kill all of these people, that's kind. So the hard and fastness, the absolutism, doesn't exist. But you as the doctor are taking an absolute position on what is cruel or kind. Who the fuck are you?
That explains an awful lot amongst attitudes.
Right.
Yeah. No. That makes perfect sense. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. And if you think about it further, that sort of makes Monk the best, doesn't it? Glad you all agree.
Anybody want to disagree? So, basically, you're your... Let me get this right. You're your girlfriend's father?
In Norwich, yeah?
That's the only place they allow it.
Again, a recent situation may have occurred, very much to my chagrin, I point out. I was asked to be in Panto in Norwich. I'm going to go back a few steps, because, I mean, you've made it this far, listeners, we didn't wang on, I may as well be boring for another 5 minutes of your lives. What is the point of doing any of this, is a question most people ask themselves, and then whatever version of living you're doing, you'll just apply that to that question. Well, my version of living is showing off, so what is the point of that? And then, if you're of any kind of intellect, you'll probably find yourself reading philosophy, and then if you're of any kind of intellect, you'll quickly realise that the only logical position to take is nihilism. Because deep down, friends, science has already told us now that there's a big bang and eventually a point at which none of it exists. And at that point, if none of it exists, none of this will have meant anything. And it's impossible to outline meaning on something that doesn't exist and never existed in terms of what may or may not have happened in that time.
However, context. The context is your own lifespan. Therefore, your own lifespan is not the lifespan of the whole universe. Therefore, basically, the point of view is to make it better for people who will come next.
Or the people around us now.
Well, yeah.
Right? But when you ask yourself that question, how committed are you to what the answer tells you about what you have to do next?
Depends on the question.
Well, but the question is, why are you doing what you're doing? What's the value in it? Right?
Yeah, I get you.
So if the value is I want to be as rich as possible, but which for some people it is, and we live in a capitalist society, essentially money is the way that you buy freedom. You know, we're all under the yoke, right? Like gas prices are going up, and what you are free to do or not do is going to be, your life will be restricted as a result of what's going on. But if we all had millions of pounds at the bank, are we really that worried? Do we feel any sense of restriction? The game that we're all playing, whether we like it or not, is be as rich as you can, and then you can do what you like. If you want to run a paedophile island, it turns out, you can if you've got enough money. But hey, look, I mean, I say that as a horrifying thing, but it should be a horrifying thing. It should be horrifying to us that we live in a world where how wealthy you are decides about whether or not the law applies to you. Trump himself said that he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and his approval rating would go up. Because when you've got enough money and enough sway and enough power, the rules don't apply to you.
Prince Andrew is a classic sign of that.
Have you met Scott?
No, but like, this is the point, right? Why is it we live in a world where you can say that and no one rises to their feet in opposition or argument? And what do we do about this piece of knowledge?
Nothing.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
Right. And for as long as that is our default, this is the world we're going to live in. So,
How good chipping away is it?
either chipping away at it, but I worry that that's just a recipe to go mad. It's, you know, like a woodpecker looking at onyx and thinking, oh, you know, the doctor, you know, like, bang, you know, I just keep punching away at it and you know, wait for the regen to come and go again. That feels to me like its own kind of madness. Living in a world gone mad, waiting for it to make you feel like you fit in. When the thing you want isn't the thing that can ever give you.
That is a form of madness.
You know,
Makes sense, yes.
please love me. Let me in your club, let me in your club, your stabbing club, the stabbing club where you stab people. Please, let me in. Then I'll be happy. Stab me, let me in.
Bonkers.
It's bonkers. The game is rigged. The proof's in the pudding. You know, your Prince Andrew, Panama Papers, whatever. That's the world. So, what can my response to that be? Spread more joy, right? Do the kind of thing. Do what I do, show off, jogging clown trousers, and work out a way of doing that makes people feel happier or gives them a rest from how horrible the world really is.
That's very socialism. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but, like, if you say, let's have a revolution, they lock you up. If you say, wouldn't it be lovely if there was a revolution and when one happens, I'll be there, then they can't lock you up.
We historically think we've been led to believe so many horrible things about revolution. And how you got to look at how the French use how we talk about our revolutions. And we have a lot of stereotypical notions about what happened in, like, say, the 17th century, and what happened in the 18th century regarding the French one and the American Revolution.
Yeah.
You know, but the difference about it is that we break with neoliberalism. I'm going to say to you what you said earlier about mindfulness. There's been a very good. I work in NHS. I work with adults with serious mental illness. I work with people with schizophrenic, people with bipolar personality disorders. There's been a very good book published recently. It's Sedated. I recommend it. It's
Called Sedated?
Yes, and it's really good about how neoliberalism has affected how we approach these issues.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing about corporate mindfulness is essentially we will organise your job in a way that will make you as sad as possible, but then we will send you on a course so that when you tell us that the job we actually ask you to do makes you sad, we can say, well, you do the things that we send you on the course and that will make you happy. So you've got no reason to be sad anymore. It's not predicated on making you happy, it's predicated on minimising their responsibility for how miserable they're making you.
Forgive me, you've only got to say.
By the way, we can clap these things, but I'm deeply miserabilist. I want to remind you of how terrible it all is. But I want to tell you how terrible it all is to try and, like, stir something.
Right.
Take how terrible it is and channel that into doing something less terrible. But all I've done for a long time is just think, oh God, isn't it terrible? And I'm done with that now.
Good.
The time is to just make whatever it is you can make or do whatever it is you can do. And that's enough. Because it's all, the weight of the avalanche is so big that pretending you've got to stop the avalanche, we can stop that now.
But when the avalanche has started, it's too late for the pebbles to vote.
Quite, it's getting hotter, planet's on fire, Flesh is going mad, Liz Truss is going to be our Prime Minister. A woman that you wouldn't leave in charge of a primary class, you wouldn't leave her in charge of everything. No, I mean, this is a woman, a tin of biscuits, you'd be like, are you sure? Are you sure now? Like, oh. So, bollocks to that. Find good people, find people that can feel anything outside of status and fear, and just get as many of them together and have as lovely a time as you can. It's I think, the only thing that can happen.
We're running out of time, which is a shame because I would have loved to talk to you about the circus. So, Rufus is a ringmaster. And a very good one, I'm told.
That's right.
Yes, that's right. But I've got to...
Oh, hang on, very quickly. I got offered a chance to be in pantomime in Norwich.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, otherwise everyone leaves here thinking I'm sleeping with my daughter.
I'll leave it. Just leave it.
Fine. I'm sleeping with my daughter. We got cast in the same panto. I had some small part to play in saying, hey, wouldn't that be nice? But we weren't looking at scripts and parts and working there, because it's panto, just going to be fun. Anyway, we went to the photo shoot 2 days ago, and I was duly informed that I am playing her father. So now, Sally Hodgkiss is delighted, and I am very, very old. Very debased in her eyes for an old man she's going out with. And if you hear the cackling from that area, that will, there you go, that will inform you just how pleased that woman is about that situation.
I have one last question because we're running out of time. This is from the Paris project, and it's a legacy question.
Right.
It gets asked a lot here. You've already mentioned the state of the economy, what's going on in America, what happened in Argentina.
Brazil.
Well, great, yeah. And also, because I mean, that's all up in arms, isn't it?
Bolsonaro.
And then we've got the whole cost of living problem at the moment. With all this that's going on, carpets in bathrooms, yes or no?
Yes.
Good man. Good man.
Controversial. Yeah. Yeah. Being clear, a carpet in your bathroom, yes. A carpet in my bathroom, no.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please thank the most fascinating guest I've ever had, Mr. Rufus Hound.